So we have two issues with an intangible measure. One is it something we measure, can measure? We measure that, but it's still perception. Net promoter score is someone's telling you, would you promote this product or service? But now the question is, can I convert it to money? It's interesting, net promoter score is just taken off in the marketing area in a big way. It's replaced customer satisfaction in most organizations. But still, most organizations don't have a monetary value for it. See, that's the issue. If my net promoter score goes from here to here, can I say, okay, this is worth this much money to us? They don't have it. I give you an example. Verizon and AT&T. Verizon does have a value for that. AT&T doesn't, and they're both giant corporations. So it's a question of whether your organization or who you're working with has done that. Since you're working with usually large organizations with the enterprise-wide systems, and you're driving a measure like stress, teamwork, that are not measured, you probably won't have a monetary value for that. And so the question is, am I trying to convert it to money? That's a bigger project than trying to calculate the ROI on your super user program. We probably don't want to go there, particularly if they haven't done that. But you can. The amazing thing that's happening in organizations is that, yes, we do take things like happiness and convert them to money. Mindfulness, convert it to money. Networking, convert it to money. All of those we've been involved. Stress is another one in actually converting to money. But that's a bigger effort than the ROI study itself, if it hasn't been done.
So what if they don't care about those? I mean, real world.
Yeah.
So
well,
you say that people are converting it to money. What if it's not going, even if you can convert it to money, they don't care?
Yeah. Well, if we think it's important, I'd put it in there anyway. Remember, you've got 5 levels of outcomes. You've got reaction, learning, application, impact, ROI, and then we have intangibles. And you see, you've got different stakeholders. The people who are involved working with you, they probably are concerned about level 1 and maybe level 2. Level 1 is my perception of what you're doing and what am I learning from you. That's probably all they want to see. But the manager of this person might be interested in level 3. What are you doing now? And level 4, what impact it has? Because that impact might be that manager's KPI. Top executives want to see impact and ROI. They love intangibles. So you've got a little something for everyone here. So you want to put all of it out there for all the stakeholders. Some are more interested in some measures than others.
Yeah, I think if I project forward with the Superuser Network, thinking about some of these intangibles, I think about I guess I would say it's hard work to go and get all the information that you need to factor into calculations. If I take stress, for example, if you're trying to calculate your ROI on your Superuser Network and you're doing it just within your organization or just up through your executive sponsor, there might not be a care about stress. But then if you go and you tap into your partner HR, if your HR organization or your people organization really cares about the stress and they've been doing even possibly some studies on that in the workplace or talent retention or any of those things, then all of a sudden I think that you begin to be able to bring in a piece of ROI that maybe the direct organization, vertical organization doesn't care about, but holistically as an organization and a company, there is some care about, but maybe it comes into the management caring about it, leave it just in that focus.
So is it almost an ROI on intangibles really that you need to almost do?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've identified these. Are there some I need to pursue a little further so that because they have influence,
Yeah.
even though I can't get the dollars out of that?
Yeah. Yes, that's a good point. There's a saying out there, the juice may not be worth worth the squeeze. You probably have heard that before. It might not be worth it to go there. Here's how we deal with that. I'll give an example. There's a banking system in Canada called CIBC, and they had a leadership conference where they brought in the heads of their banking segments all across the world. They operate globally, although they're based there in Toronto. And so they bring them together in a leadership conference. They teach them how to be better leaders, but they're also networking. And they wanted to network because they see value in them networking. Then they could swap clients and refer and do some helpful things with each other. And so the top executive said to the talent team, why don't you show us the ROI of this conference? And could you show us what's the monetary benefit coming through the networking? Of course, they call us up. We've been working with them, and they says, can you do that? And our answer is always yes. Yes, for both. We can put a monetary value on that. And we said, what we'll do is we'll look at the two projects. One is the ROI of the conference, and another is the converting the networking to a monetary value. Two different projects. And they said, well, why do you have two different projects? I said, it's going to cost you more for the converting network into money than your ROI study. If you put those together, you're going to think an ROI study costs that much money, and it doesn't. So we had two projects. You want me to explain how we got to the value of networking? Okay. So trying to track what they do is a critical thing. First thing we did was see who's networking with whom. So we have some special name tags, and you probably have seen these. So when name tags have a computer chip here, so when I'm close to Regina here, if I stay here for a few seconds, a predetermined time, it says we're networking because we're talking. And so it tells you during the course of the conference who you're networking with. But there's a little reminder that please take the badges off at night, just in case we don't care about your networking at midnight. And by the way, this is positioned as, this is not your performance. We're just curious of what's coming through networking. First, we got to know who's networking. And so they all agreed, said, look, your name is kept confidential with us. It's only the external evaluators are going to know this. So we collect that data. So we have 54 people. And so we call each person and have about an hour interview. So we notice you networked with these people. Okay. And which of these do you think you got maybe some business relationship coming out of it? And what might it be? So we get a little information there. That's 54 1-hour interviews. You can see it gets expensive here. And we say, okay, we're going to come back in 2 months, and here's a list of the kinds of questions we want. We want you to follow this on through to see what comes out of your networking. And we want to understand when you've got an impact, what % of that impact is connected to this networking. And we're going to adjust for the error of that, and here's how that's done. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then we want to get that to money. Show us the monetary value it brought to the bank by having this networking. As you can imagine, some people had no success. Nothing happened. A lot of them, nothing happened. Some had some happening. Some have some big projects that happen, and as you expect. And on the second interview, which is then about 2 hours, they provide this kind of data in detail. We take that data and we add all of that data, take the total and divide it by the 54. We got almost $2,500 per person for the value for networking. Now, that helped the executive because they knew there's some value there, and make them feel good. It was not quite enough to pay for the conference. You got other things to pay for the conference besides the networking, but the networking then became a big component. It was no longer an intangible; it's tangible, going right into the ROI calculation. But you can see that's a big project. You may not want to do that. You can convert any data item to money if you're willing to take enough time and throw enough money at it. And you may not be willing to do that. That's a long explanation, but it's an important issue to look at because you got intangibles coming through your project. So I want to close this story on Sarah. Now, Sarah had an issue that Tony brought up. You know, do I go forward or do I look back? She says, after attending this certification, Sarah was actually in the certification explaining this process to her whole colleagues. By the way, they were so touched with what she's doing, the whole group wanted to be her informal board of directors going forward and helping her with her study. And a lot of people agreed. So she left and she decided, together they decided, I should say, that you've got to go back. You'd like to say, I'm going to start more precisely going forward and I can get some data, but that's going to be months to get to there. I've got this big gorilla who came to my door 2 months ago. I got to get it quickly. So they had to go back. See, here's the point she was making. She said, we have these action plans already built into the process, but it's positioned as something for them. They didn't even collect them. They said, this is your tool. This is your journey to get your problem resolved. But now for them to evaluate, what she's got to do is call everyone up and say, so Terry, you know that action plan, I need it now. I need you to give me some data. Terry would say, why? Why would you want to do this? Are you going to turn me into the taxing authorities? You're going to call the CFO. You're going to do something bad here. I can tell. See, she's going to have a hard time getting the data because it's their data, not hers. That's the way she positioned it. She said, going forward, I could position it differently. I could say, hey, this is your journey. But if you give that to us, it shows the value of this program so we can make it better for others. So that's just a little switch would make a big difference going forward. So she was stuck with what she had, but she had enough data there to make it. Because she even gave a lot of anecdotal data about the lives she was changed. She gets little notes from them and the difference it makes.
I really like that point because in a super user network, one of the challenges is collecting data
That's right.
from the super users themselves because there's a balance of the data that you need to collect for them for ROI and the administrative overhead of collecting that data, right, Terry?
Right.
And so that's always been one thing that we've talked about is you have to position it to those super users in a way that helps them be a part of deciding what's too much administratively and what's not, but also the education of why we're collecting this data and how it feeds back in to get more money to make
Well,
it go.
and how, the tool that you use to collect the data.
Yeah.
So, like when we implemented like T&E at McKesson, we had to go back to help desk tickets. You know, how long and what were they calling about once we started implementing it. And then we had to look at, we had to categorize what those help desk tickets were as a pertain to travel and expense. And, you know, was it, you know, there are like several different categories within that one T&E area. So that when we started looking at the super user support, you know, the calls dropped almost 50% within the first 6 months. But it's collecting that data and working with those tools and processes. That was one aspect of it. But then, you know, to get the super users to capture data themselves, like I've supported this person, it was hard to show the value of that. With, like you said, them collecting that data. Did they want to learn how to remedy tickets? No, they didn't want to do any of that, right?
Right, because I mean, there's that balance of that. I'm not a help desk.
Exactly.
I didn't get on the super user network to be a replacement for the help desk. And so there's a lot of balancing that has to happen to ensure that the things that you put in place and the tools that you use don't become institutionalized as an expectation for a role that they're not signed up and you don't want them to fulfill.
Actually, we do use tickets for our super users.
You do?
We do.
Some companies we do. Hitachi did.
We do. We use tickets to track what they've been doing. It took us a while to explain the benefit of why we were asking them to do tickets, and they did.
Yeah, for Hitachi, it was their regular IT ticket
process. It
Right.
just went to a superuser first, and then they can indicate whether they resolved it or not. And if not, then it went to our team and my team.
Right, because a lot of times the user will come to the IT because they want to be, their managers to know about certain things, and then it's easier for them to look like, is that how I do this? But then in reality, those are business decisions, and that they should consult with their whoever is in their team. So
Right.
we put the process in place to have managers or collaborative force to understand what they're struggling with, and then evaluate if it is really technical issues or if it is process issues is technical, then they'll escalate to the CP team and we'll look at it, and if the system needs to be modified or something needs to be done to fix it without the process. If it is something that business has to fix, then they'll have to escalate it closer to them.
So was it a simple ticket process of where it is, was this issue resolved, yes or no, and then brief description of what you did to resolve it, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's obviously it's just a description and nothing to, we can really calculate,
Oh, bless you.
digitally, but then it's just, kind of putting process in place. So then the super users can be more involved in the day-to-day operations and decision making.
Was there a complexity? It was like a low, medium, high?
Ticket has that.
So from that, I mean, it
No,
wasn't where they
it's
said I
like-
spent 20 minutes or 45 minutes, it was a low, we assumed it was, I forget the averages, but it was an average ticket time.
So then you determine the dollar value, the ROI, based on the ticket you resolved?
Well, I think we don't do that anymore, but at one point my team members, we have to keep track of our time. So we will put today we have worked on this ticket, and then we spend 30 minutes to resolve that one, maybe it took 2 days to resolve the ticket, or, so then, that is going to show up as more of the other, I don't know if it's converted to dollar amount, but then it's an hourly amount to show, yes, and my SAP team has spent, I think, 80% of their time supporting this division versus, the options to the
Yeah.
divisions, because, we
How
have
interesting.
several divisions that pay for
Yeah, there's
our salary.
There's life science equipment, there's etchers, there's big TVs. This company has a lot of different divisions that were very different in their business process. So it started as an exercise of, they paid per head count. Some of the larger divisions felt like they were getting less IT time, and so it was more to show them how much time IT was supporting them. But then when super users came to the picture, it was like, how can we put them into that process and figure out how much time they can offload from the IT team, because we were stretched so thin and we wanted to provide more support. So that's kind of how we used it, but it wasn't an exact science, but it gave us enough data to support the program.
So I think what we're saying, this is a very important source of data for us. We've got to make sure we get it confidentially from them and protect their identity, because you want them to give you good quality data. So it may be impact data that we have for level 4 in the system. Impact data may come from them, but impact data may be in the system. But even if it's in the system, we may have to get their input in terms of sorting out the effects of this program on that data. So we will need data from them. And they're
What do you mean by reputation? Yeah, but they're under impact. And then reputation.
that's an intangible impact. It's like on that list that you saw, reputation is one of those. Yeah. I put tangible and intangible there. So at level 4, the impacts that we can convert to money become tangible. They go into the calculation. If we can't convert it to money, it's an intangible. It's reported out as such. We call that our 6th type of data. It's still level 4 data, but just not converted to money. Still important. So we got to close this case on Sarah. We don't want to leave her hanging. Now, here's the timing. It was a month before she was in this program since the government representative visited. There was no timeline set for her to provide data, which is a mistake there, I think. After leaving this session, she took about a month working with, in the past, getting data. And 2 months, she almost had the study done. It was looking good. some great data for the government representative. But here's what happened on page 40. Page 40 in your workbook. So, not the news that Sarah wanted to see. Is the government wrong in their approach, you think?
No.
They've got to make a decision. And again, all they had been supplied to them is how many people have been counseled, how long are they in the counseling, and the cost for the counseling. That's level 0. And the reason they didn't have any other data, they didn't require it. They required that data. And so Sarah only gave that data because that's all that's required. Now they come looking for data. That began the story. Now, let's look at two perspectives here, from the government and from the Catholic Family Services, where Sarah was connected. So what could they, I'd say there's a problem here because Sarah had some good data that shows the value of this program. And they killed it. So I think they killed a program that was working, but they didn't have the data. If you were trying to look at process improvement from the government perspective, what could you have done differently? Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Don't fund projects without an ROI.
Yeah, or at least impact.
Yeah.
You see, I think if Sarah had impacts, these are the people who got a job. Here's how much of that goes to us. Here's the people who got out of jail. This is how if this much goes to us. If she had that kind of data, I think they'd say, okay, this is good. I'm going on somewhere else. But absent that data, you're making it on that level 0, what is costing us, and that's not good data. Require impact. We see this occurring in foundations. The Gates Foundation is a foundation we work with, and we serve as evaluators for them. And it's amazing how they require impact. If you ever heard of anyone getting grants from the Gates Foundation, it's impact. You got to have impact or you don't get the money. That's what's happening these days. Governments are now getting that. We see a radical change in Saudi Arabia. Now, I know Saudi Arabia is usually in the news for the wrong reasons, but the Crown Prince, one of the things he's doing is getting the government there to think ROI. That's one of his statements. I want you to think about the benefits of anything you do versus the cost of it. I want you to think that way. And so we're working them through the Institute for Public Administration to get this in the Saudi government. It's a big project that takes us years. But that's a mentality. There's a major book written last year, made the New York Times bestseller list. It's called The Cost-Benefit Revolution. The chief regulator from the Obama administration wrote that book. And the point they're making is that every government needs to have any program, any regulation, you need to do cost-benefit analysis. And that's what's happening around the world. And it's right here in governments at all levels. So government needs to put higher standards on the data they need, as Rob was saying. How about showing me the impact of this? What could the Catholic Family Services have done differently maybe to prevent this?
The same thing Superuser Networks need to do,
Yes.
get in front of it.
Yes, that's right. You could say all they want is my invoice of costs, and you put yourself in their position. Are you satisfied that that's showing that you use this money wisely? Well, no. It doesn't show outcome at all. What would you want to see if you were giving this money? What would you want to see in return? And I think, yes, flipping that around and say, they're not asking for this, but I think we need this. We need this to guarantee our funding. We need this to make sure that we're driving the right kind of data. And if we had that data ahead of them, we wouldn't have this problem. So we learn from both ways here. And don't wait for this.
We do in the Superuser Networks. bit of a luxury in that many executives aren't asking for data in the programs. They're not, because a lot of times they don't know what to ask for,
That's
because they
true.
don't quite understand the superuser network. They understand superusers in projects, and they don't even have to ask that question. But they don't understand this current day story and future story. And so if you can get ahead of that and create your ROI story and data position to them, it puts you more in the driver's seat, where they're not going to come and ask you to go after things that aren't reasonable for you to go after because they just don't know what to ask for. So tell them what they need to be asking for and give them the playbook and let them tweak the playbook based on what you told them is reasonable to be collecting at this point in time. And then you're in control of your data journey, more in control.
Yes. Give you an example. This is from page 14. This is the data that was sent to me from the Doctors Without Borders. And this is showing what they've done globally. And when you look at these data items, they're all level 3 or level 4 on our system. There's no level 0. Level 0 is how many doctors they have, the number of countries they're serving, the number of people they're touching. It's not on there. Now, 2 weeks ago, I was with one of the largest autism providing organizations, and they just sent out a brochure about how great they are trying to get donors. Every item on that infographic was level 0. How many facilities? Like they got 100 buildings. How many acres of land? How many people they're serving? The counties where they serve. How many donors they have? Their annual budget. And it says, and we have 23 programs. This is all level 0. So I said, that's not getting a donor excited because you don't say anything about the outcome with the kids and the adults. They serve both children and adults. And the big takeaway from them, the person in charge of that says, I'm going to send out a new one. This is going to be phase 2. And it's going to have they got the data, they just didn't put it out there. This is so powerful. When I saw this, I sent them a check. Because they showed me they're getting results. You see, we know people who give money. Number one is the cause for they're connected to this cause, this important thing. Number 2, are you using my money wisely? So many of them are not. And this data tells you they are. So I think we've had enough on this. Let's move through the process. Questions? Issues?
That's what I was telling Carlos. I wish I knew this in 2016.
Yes.
Because again, as the organization made changes and they laid off our entire department from our VP down to our group, again, they're making a business decision based off of the data that they had.
Yes.
This is just so interesting, and to know now to get out there and start asking those questions.
Yes.
Of your executive team.
It's
That's so amazing.
we've been out there since our first book was 1983. Most of you were not born then, right? So we're not hiding. we just don't have full-page ads in major newspapers saying this is a process, or where we're slowly getting this out to a lot of organizations. We have become now the most used evaluation system in the world. That took a long time, and that comes from like endorsements. The United Nations adopted this methodology with the UN General Assembly resolution in 2008. And they explained in a press release why they wanted to go with this evaluation system. And you can imagine that drove our business in a big way. We didn't ask for the endorsement. It came as a surprise. It works. That's why people use it. And it helps them save programs, prevent counseling programs, getting funding for programs. See, what gets us in trouble, we put programs in without thinking through the reason. Because who could resist programs like this? If you look at any of those, we'd say, well, yeah, that'd be good to do, wouldn't it? And I can see some people say, yeah, the super users would be good. Who could argue against the super user? I mean, anything to help the business, right? And I'm sure that's what they're doing. So we get into this issue here. And so we have to ask the first question, is it really worth doing? So I'm going to introduce you to the V model. The V model is on page 21. It's our alignment model, page 21 of the workbook. Excuse me. It's a good question. Page 21. Payoff needs. That means, is there a need for a positive payoff? Is there a need for a positive ROI? Do I need to get more value out of this program than it's costing me? Or do I at least need to break even? That's a good question to ask. See, you're saying, is it a problem we're solving? And I imagine you encounter a lot of this. Say, this big system or these systems are not working. It's causing us to put too much resources behind them. We're having too many mistakes, delays, error, waste, rework. We got customers and clients and internal people who are upset, angry. You got all of this going on. It sounds like it's a problem we're solving. Or it could be, is it an opportunity worth pursuing? Say, look, we're probably this seems to be going smooth, but there's still lots of glitches. If you compare this with other implementations, we're probably doing better. So it's not really a problem, but we can even improve. I want to do better. There's room for improvement here. So it's an opportunity worth pursuing. You see, it could be obvious that it's a problem we're solving if it costs a lot of money or something. Or it could be, I need to have some discussion with this person to see how bad this could be or is now. Or it might be a simple analysis saying this is what could happen, what is happening in terms of what it's costing us. And then we might need a detailed forecast. A forecast would clarify, is it a problem worth solving or an opportunity worth pursuing, because that's your ROI forecast. Now, that leads us to this alignment, and I want to just walk you through this. You found this in your page. I want to take you on a quick tour of how we address these different steps. What we're doing here is showing you the alignment around the different levels. If you think about what we've discovered and discussed already, we're trying to evaluate a program here all the way this way up to ROI maybe. As we try to evaluate, we have objectives that are set. We're going to show you the executives some tips on writing objectives. The objectives define the data we need. You see, a very precise objective would tell us what to measure, sometimes even where it may be, maybe even when it should be measured. So we need very precise objectives, which we don't have so much. Now, if we have, where do we get the objectives? We actually get those from needs, the needs assessment at each level. A payoff need, a need to have a positive ROI, translates into an ROI objective, and we measure ROI. A business need is understanding the business drivers. As Rob was saying this morning, those are our business drivers. We set an objective. How much should they change? Very precise objective if we can. Time bound if we can. And then application is, what is it we're going to be doing? You see, if you think about business need, we got these business needs, these business measures that need to improve related to probably our system. It may be productivity, errors, waste, rework, downtime, delays, complaints, dissatisfaction, all those kinds of bad things.
More revenue.
Yeah, things that we're losing because it's not So, okay, then we say, okay, now what do we got to do to correct that? See, now that's moving us to performance needs. Let's see if we can get this going. How should we be performing with our system to drive that business need? What should we be doing differently to get there? And of course, your solution is you need a super user. You need a super user network. You need all of us working together here. That's what you need. And so we have to convince this person that this is the right solution to get to that. Because you see, you wouldn't have this delay if they knew what to do here. And that's what we do. You wouldn't be spending this much money on the help desk if we can do it much cheaper here. So you're showing them what we do is really addressing that business need. You're making the connection that you're the solution. Just like the coaches had to say, can I improve that business measure by serving as your coach? I got to convince you that we can. You got to convince the audience that you can. And now when you do that, that's saying, okay, this is what we'll be doing now. Application. This is what you'll be doing as a result of what you get from us. How you will be operating based on what you're getting from us. And those are application objectives. And then there's learning objectives. See, there's some things maybe you don't know so well. We're going to fill those gaps. This is what you'll be learning from us. And we put those together in nice learning objectives here. Learning objectives. And then this is how we want you to perceive this. This is the value that you should perceive from our services. And that's going to be a reaction objective. We want you to see this as important to your success. It's important to this organization. It's something that's relevant to your work. It's something that you'd recommend to others. And it's something you are dedicated to make work, make successful. So that's how you do it, working down that list. And let me show you, this is a little dangerous to do this, but I want to go to Diego's case study. It's at the back of this. Now, I don't want you to start reading this now because we want to talk about this at the end when we close out. But this is your late night reading when you launch them on board. See, some people, like Rob's already read a third of this 500-page book here. He's a speed reader. But this is, look on page 68 for a minute. This is what your alignment looks like in your own case study. Page 68. The needs, clearly defined, lead to objectives, clearly constructed, and it leads to our evaluation over on the right side. So this is what it should look like. Now, we'll come back to Diego's case study, so I'm going to get you focused back here if I could. So what we're doing here is this. We're understanding what's our business need here. We're aligning to the business here at the business need level as you see the business need. The next level is where we determine our solution. This is how we will get there. This is what we'll be doing. This is the solution to your problem that you have, or the solution to the opportunity that you want to pursue. And then from that, we get those objectives. So from this process, we're getting the needs at the business level, identifying the solution, and getting these objectives. The objectives now give us the direction and the guidance at all levels. So this is the first three blocks that we do. We'll start with why, the business need, make it feasible by having the right solution, making sure it's the right solution, and then expect success, design for the results that we want. The objectives give us a vehicle designed for the results we need. Now, those are the first three processes. I want to give a little more detail here. Sometimes when we start, it's not so obvious. And I won't spend much time here because what you're dealing with is usually something pretty obvious. Let's go back to page 22 for a minute. Some of these are quite obvious that we got a problem. I should say most of these on this page is quite obvious. Let's go to number 2 bullet point. You see page 22 in your workbook? Workbook, page 22. Now, this is from the Social Security Administration. We worked with the IT department for some time. We started working with them. Their budget was $1.9 billion for an IT function. Have you ever seen an IT budget that large before? I haven't either. And what got us there is that they had no data that shows the impact or ROI of any of their systems and the projects. And that was revealed in testimony before Congress when the administrator, commissioner, I think they call it, said, no, we don't have any data like that. So this is one of the projects. They had automated disability claims processing. By automating it, isn't it supposed to go down? It's actually increased. You've gone from manual to automated, and it went up 30%. So this is a problem, and because disability claims is such a big part of their business, this is the problem we're solving here. So when it's that way, we quickly go into, what's the solution? So many times what you're dealing with is something's pretty obvious, but so many of us get trapped into these not so obvious. Look on page 23. Look at the first one. Has you ever seen that one before? Become a technology leader. That's not so obvious. Is this an opportunity or a problem, is it? It doesn't tell us what business measure we have, what business need. Is it an image? We want people to think that we're a technology leader? Is it because there's no complaints about technology? Is it mean that we've got 3 million super users? What does it mean to be a technology leader? So it requires us probing even more so, understanding what do we mean if we become a technology leader. What's the outcome? Is our IT budget going down? Is it complaints about IT, delays? Is it the downtime goes down? Cyber attacks go away? What is our definition? So you can see all kinds of things here that get us into trouble because we are not so clear. So these really give us a problem because we have to drill down and understand the business need. In the previous one, the business need is in front of us. We just got to define it and how much to improve it. So we do this to make sure we connect to the business and it will have the right solution. And I just want to show you one example of what happens if you don't look at the entire process. Let's go to page 27 for a minute. And let's read the first 2 paragraphs there for this one, just for a minute. Page 27, first 2 paragraphs. So at the end of the second paragraph, okay, they built the apartments. The problem is they didn't come. So they had to tear them down eventually. What they ignored was, look, it's costing us so much. $75,000 a year for each homeless, chronic homeless. Apartments cost less than that. Let's build the apartments. And we didn't go down the rest of it. You see, what happened is that they didn't trust them. What's the catch here? If I'm giving up my privacy, am I ultimately going to have to pay for this? What's the rules? Not such a good job of explaining the rules. And not checking, say, preference. We want them to, remember the most powerful reaction you could have is, I will use this. I will do this. I want to go to every one of those homeless and say, if we built you a shelter, would you move into it? They didn't. Now, unfortunately, some won't.
Yeah,
It-
but homelessness might not be
Yeah,
the
they-
underlying problem. It could be mental illness.
Yeah, it could be that, or some people prefer that this is what they want and they want to stay there. Yes, you have some who have to be there because they have no money. They probably will. But just getting an understanding, would they do it or not? And if not, why not? You could work through some of these issues.
Did they lose the what's in it for me?
Yes. They didn't see what's in it for me. Is there some condition here? And you could even take them, if someone says, it looks okay, and I understand that what my responsibilities are, but I need a little more convincing. They could have taken them to some other cities where they've done this and done it properly. Let them talk to some other homeless, or have them come there and say, okay, I trust this person now, maybe a little more. So we've got to, my point is, we've got to work down this list. And this is trying to understand, what do people need to know to make it work? Wasn't so clear. How should we deal with their perception? That we said this morning, that causes so many projects to break down, they just don't see a need for it. We got to work on that. Level 1 is critical. And it's our first level of outcome that can easily kill the project. Okay, I think we get this concept. I'd like to go to objectives for a minute. Objectives. And I'd like to get you an exercise on page 31. We've been talking about objectives already, and let's see how we're doing here. This is a level 2 check. You can work with your partners. Does anyone want to change partners? You want to move to a smarter person? You could upgrade? No, we're okay. You can work with your partner here on page 31. So these are some objectives. Objectives from projects. And we're asking this question: if I collect data to see if I met that objective, at what level am I evaluating? Is it reaction? Is it learning? Is it application? Is it impact? Is it ROI? Let's take the first one together. After completing this program or project, participants should decrease citizen complaints by 20% in 1 year.
Level 4.
4. See, quickly, I knew you were quick studies here. So put 4 there. So now with your partner there, put a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you want a job aid that helps us with this, it's your application guide. You go to the inside cover of your application guide. It's got a list of these levels. So inside cover of your application guide is your cheat sheet here as we go through this. Right inside your cover, application guide, this one here. Application guide. Okay, good, good. Application guide right here. It's okay. There you go. Good. Okay, let's see what we're doing here. On some of you, I think you need new partners. Yeah. So how about number 1? We said was 4. Now number 2 is 3. See, after completing this program, participants should use problem-solving skills to uncover causes of the problem. Using, see, that's doing something. Yeah. Action, application. That was 2. Yeah. Now 3. Number 3 is, I heard Carla say, 2. Participants should be able to demonstrate. See, in writing objectives, be able to demonstrate is showing that you know how to do something. That's a level 2, learning. How about number 4? 1. Number 5. Go back to number 4. Rate the facilitator 4 out of 5 on presentation skills. See, that doesn't tell me how much you know, or whether you do anything, or whether there's an impact. It's your reaction to the facilitator. That's why it's level 1. Are we okay there? And now number 5 is 4. It's a time. See, classic impact measures, output, quality, cost, and time are the big hard data categories. So many things roll up into those numbers. Time. See, we don't just decide to take less time, we do something different. Something different is going to be level 3. In this case, that's using some technology that supports the proposal process, and that's redefining or changing our proposal process. So to put those in place, you're now showing them how to use the proposal process, how to use the technology, that's level 2. They're using it at level 3, and the consequence is going to take me less time now. 4. 4 is the answer. Number 5. Impact. Are we okay there? Yep. Number 6. 5. Number 7. 1. Number 8. 4. Number 9. 3. Yep. See, after completing this program, participants should conduct a proper investigation using the 7-step process. To check to see if you're doing that, I have to see you doing that on the job. See, that's a level 3, doing it. Remember, level 3 is action always, activity, using, applying, doing something. Okay, number 10? 2. Number 11? 3? No, yeah, 3. See, that's an ethics policy. One of the things that our policy requires is for us to turn in that document once a year. So that's something we do to be in compliance. It's level 3. It's an action item. And that doesn't tell us how much we've learned. It's not an impact yet. The impact would be things like we're preventing fraud, incidences of expense account violations, doing something wrong there. And now number 12 is 3. Yes, all right. So just a point here. Objectives, I'm sensing that we might not have objectives for our superuser networks or projects. Is that true? Do we have good, clear objectives at all levels? Probably not. Maybe at the impact level, maybe not. What we're suggesting that we have all 4, and here's some rules, and I want to show you the power of this. Let's think about the rules first. This is on page 30. Now, I show you where these come from, a couple of our publications, but there's a very powerful book. I don't know if it's in your library yet, but it probably should be. It's from John Doerr. It says, Measure What Matters. See at the very bottom of page 30? How Google, Bono, and the Gates Foundation rocked the world with OKRs. OKRs are objectives with key results. We call that a specific objective. And here's what we've learned since the 1960s about the power of objectives, setting goals, setting objectives. First, if we have no objectives, we probably get some performance. If we have a vague objective, we get a little more. If we have a specific objective, we even get more. This is the OKR, objective with key results areas. And if we have a stretch objective, say, yes, we have a minimum acceptable performance, that's the OKR, stretch yourself maybe. But you got to put some conditions on that. And here's what we mean by that. First, an objective sets a minimum level of performance. Anything less than that, we didn't make it for that objective. And then fewer are better than many. We want to keep few measures that are so critical. And then use subject matter experts to set the specificity on the key result. That is, when I say reduce this measure by this much by this particular time, I'm going to get that from two sets of subject matter experts. One who understands what we're doing with the system, that's a content expert. Another one understands where these users are actually located, the work that they're doing, the environment that they're in. And those two experts are going to help us pinpoint the specifics. Keep them relevant, create stretch objectives, but make sure that they can get there. It's a disservice when we tell people that our goal is 0 defects in a major company like Texas Instruments. It's a mirage. You'll never get there. And people know that. So you lose people because they know that it's a crap. There's no way you can get there. I remember at Lockheed when we were building the C-5A aircraft. At that time, it was the world's largest airplane. I mean, a 747 was, if you parked it beside it, it would come about 3/4 of the way up. That's how big this plane was. And we had a 0 defects goal. Can you build a plane like that? No. And we just chuckled because we'd have speeches, rallies, 0 defects. See, that's an unachievable goal. So yes, in philosophy, we never want a defect. Just like we don't ever want to have an injury. But realistically, what's possible? It's got to be achievable. Now, you got to have flexibility to change if it's not working. Failure is okay. Remember, it's process improvement. Objectives are tools for progress, not weapons of performance review. So if we get someone to set a stretch objective, we don't beat them up at the end because they didn't meet it. You got to separate performance review from their efforts in the Superuser project. And then they should be time-bound for most of them, and it gives the focus for design, development, and implementation. The reason you should buy this book is because there's a history here that you should know. John Doerr is chairman of a venture capital firm in the Silicon Valley. It's called Kleiner Perkins. You know that? Yes. Now, John went to Silicon Valley in the 70s with an engineering degree and an MBA, ready to tackle the world. He went to work with Intel. Intel was one of the most impressive organizations at that time. One of the founders of Intel is a person named Andy Grove. And Andy had a meticulous way of keeping the focus, and it was OKRs. He taught them OKRs. John talks about his early days in Intel as a new person going through the training with Andy Grove. He had some other trainees there with him that would be names that you know now, like Sheryl Sandberg was one of the trainees with him, and they were learning OKRs under Andy Grove. Well, Andy has done something no major company has done previously. I should say since then. He ran Intel, Fortune 500 company at the time, and returned over 40% annual shareholder return 11 years in a row. You can't get any better than that. Now, that was his focus. So John learned that with him, and so he left there to join Kleiner Perkins. And what makes them well known is that they started several well-known startups like Google. They started Google, and they funded Google. They own 10% of Google now. Can you imagine owning 10% of Google? Now, and Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, wrote the foreword to this book. He said, we're not successful at Google because we had key talent and we had a great idea. We're successful at Google because of OKRs that John taught us in the early stages of our organization. OKRs, objectives and key results areas. So they're powerful. And that book is full of interviews with Bill Gates and Bono, particularly his work in Africa. And so I'd say it's a must read for you. It made the bestseller list last year. And so it's just a great statement for what we're talking about here. objectives. We got to have objectives. And we got some examples here. You can look on page 32 very quickly. Page 32, some examples of reaction objectives. Page 32. Now, you notice we got asterisks by some of these. The asterisks are usually the more powerful ones. They're the ones who, sorry about that. Yes. They're more powerful because they are often predictors. There's a correlation, usually there's a correlation between these with the asterisk, correlation with application. You see, on a 1 to 5 scale, for example, if you got reaction, and then you follow up and get on a 1 to 5 scale, get extent of use of what you're doing, you should get predictors. That is, on a 1 to 5 scale, the 4 is where you pick for reaction. On application, you also get a 4 normally. And the good news is here is that you've got a reaction that's going to predict application. And that's what we need. So we want to measure something with the people we're dealing with early on in the process that's going to predict whether or not they're going to follow what we teach them on the job. And that's what we're doing here. Does it surprise you with any of these asterisks? Which one you think is the most important? We've already said it. The most important means it's the strongest correlation coefficient normally. It's a hint. It's down near the bottom. It's right on the bottom.
I will use the concepts of material.
Yes. That's what we really want people to say. In a non-threatening, unbiased way. Collected anonymously. To say, hey, I'm going to use this. I'm going to follow this process. I'm going to make this work. See, if there's no pressure for them to say that, no names on a questionnaire, that's powerful data because you know that there probably are. Reaction. So you want to select maybe 2 or 3 of these and put them as objectives in your project. All right, now for level 2, learning, I think we've seen these a lot. You see on page 33 some typical learning objectives. They often follow this philosophy or this approach. There's a performance slant. There's sometimes a condition under which they are measuring their learning, and then maybe a criteria for the amount. Let me give an example. How many of you are certified in CPR to give cardiopulmonary resuscitation? How many are certified? This is good news. So you remember when you took the course, you had a simulator, human simulator? And here's how the learning objective was written, normally. Given the human simulator, that's a condition. Revive the human simulator, that's a performance slant, in 2 tries in 2 minutes. See, that's the precision we need. You have time as an issue and you get a couple of tries. But you had to do that to pass the test, to become certified. You have to show that. So classic learning objectives. You see some there on page 33. Just making sure we've got a measurable objective that we can see. Questions about learning objectives? They're pretty straightforward. How about application objectives? Defining what you want people to do. This is the critical level here. Because as a super user, you want them to be implementing what you're recommending, using the tools that you offer them, the templates that you create for them, the documents that you create, using you to solve problems, using you to take care of an issue. You want them to be doing. So you set some objectives there. What % of your projects you have where do you actually have learning your application objectives, level 3 objectives? Do you have them on any of your projects now? Application objectives. We should, but maybe don't.
We haven't defined them yet.
Yes. Not yet.
I think it gets squeezed out when the
Remember, no objectives, you get some performance. Vague objective, you get more. Specific, we want the specific ones. That's the OKR. We get even more. And maybe try to stretch people. Yes, maybe you can't. We're asking you to do this in about at 3 out of 4 times. But why not do it every time? Try to stretch yourself a little bit. We set the minimum objective, but let's stretch it. Now let's go to impact. Remember, impact is where the sponsor wants to see. Impact is on page 35. Those are the kinds of measures we see everywhere on page 35. You see a good listing of these in your application guide on page 6 and 7. Page 6 in your application guide. In your organizations, would it be safe to say you have thousands of these measures, at least hundreds of these kinds of measures? Output, quality, cost, and time. Classic hard data categories, but sometimes we have the softer ones. That's on the next page. These are already in the system. That's the good news. We're improving measures in the system. That's our business driver that Rob started with this morning. The business condition that we have. Those business issues define the measure that we want to start with. And this objective is now telling how much we're going to improve that and by what time. We're starting with the end in mind, the business measure. This is showing what success looks like when we get there. Impact objective. What % of your programs and projects do you have impact objectives now? Terry's saying roughly rounded off to 0.
There could be, right now, again, I'm so new and reading, learning about the project itself.
Yeah.
There's definitely an impact of increasing the volume of physicians using this particular new
Yes.
tool.
So they're powerful because of these reasons here. And remember, we're designing for success because we take these objectives and give them to everyone involved in the project. Those who are actively creating templates and processes in the project, but also those who are supporting the project. Those poor souls that have to make it work. Everybody gets it, including the manager of those poor souls who have to make it work. And, of course, the boss, the sponsor. It's these measures that make the sponsor happy. They never get excited about a learning objective. I've never seen an executive get excited about a learning objective. But I have seen them get excited about an impact objective. So you can reduce the waste this much. You can save this much time. You can reduce these number of complaints. It can reduce our reliance on the call center this much. See, that gets them excited. Impacts. Okay, questions? So that's the first 3 steps, but we spent a long time because that gets us started. It's easy from here on out, maybe. But I will go to a real easy piece. Now, we're working through the fold-out model. By the way, the extra copies of this if you need them. Remember, they make great laminated placemats for your dining room table. Let's go to those 2 gray spots in the middle. The gray means that we normally do that already quite well, for the most part. That's data collection. And I want to take you through a little matching exercise. Some of you probably need to change partners so you can do better. Just kidding, of course. Page 41. So let's look at some classic ways to collect data. And let's look at scenarios where we are collecting the data. So on page 41, we've got 7 methods of data collection. And we've got 7 scenarios. Forced choice matching, that means we use every letter only once, but use every letter. Then on the next box, we put the level of data. Is it reaction? Is it learning? Is it application? Is it impact? See, we collect data at 4 levels. Level 5 is taking the level 4 data and processing it to get to level 5. Data collection. So are we collecting reaction, learning, application, impact? Work with your partner. And it's okay to get up and move. You can change partners at any time. Let's finish this exercise. Diego, we're actually going through a data collection exercise here. Let's see how we're doing first. Then we've got some business to do here. Need a little more time. And a better partner, did you say? No. You need, yes. You need to upgrade, don't you? You need,
Yeah, I figured you probably couldn't, hear them, but we wanted to get you on anyway, to say hi to everyone. We've been talking about your case story. Yeah, so it's been a really great day. I was hoping that I could get you all on at least in Skype in the morning, to say hi to everyone. I don't know if we're gonna be able to make it, I don't know. But going really great, really good day. Great day. Excited for tomorrow. Oh yeah, really good stuff. So he's gonna wrap up, here.
you ready? You think?
I was getting ready to take the picture.
That's more important. Yeah. Yeah. Stay where you are. Yeah. This is good.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
You didn't have any.
Which one?
You had
Yes. Which
You
one?
do that one.
That one? This one? Yes. Yes, we got more. Back there.
I didn't look into anything. I didn't see anything.
Yeah. Right over here.
Do you feel like you are right now?
Yeah. There's one. There's. You need another one?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
You need another one?
When people use it, just pick up the extra one.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. There's 2 there. Good. All right, good. So let's quickly see how we're doing here.
That's awesome.
Ready?
Right, exactly.
Hey, Barbara, you ready?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
This is a fast group back here. So, yes. Let's see how we're doing. First, on number 1, what's our instrument? We go F. Observation.
What is it?
Observation. F. Yeah.
Oh, wait, so we got F,
And
right?
level 3. I heard 3. We'll go with 3.
No, we had one, level
1. Here's why we'd say F. It says the staff must determine the extent to which field representatives are actually using. See, observation is the way that you actually are using this.
But why is that level 3?
Actually using the newly acquired skills. See, using. So what's happening is observation is our best method at level 3 if we can get it to work. For observation to work, it has to be invisible or unnoticeable. The good thing with software, in particular SAP, is that they've got user performance profile built into the system. Have you ever heard of an option they sell with the ERP at SAP, and that's the NOAA?
Yeah.
Yeah. NOAA is a user performance profile. We help them launch that. We've been working with SAP for almost 20 years now. And so when they launched that product, we did a webinar for them, to the customers. We say, now it's easy to see what your users are doing, level 3, level 4. It's always difficult because without that, you either have to take their word for it, yes, or you have to go into the system and kind of recreate what they've done, which gets so time consuming. So that gives you some real-time observation. And it's, see, observation to work, it either becomes invisible or unnoticeable. It's not invisible because they're told it's there, and it's like Big Brother watching you, it's always there. It becomes unnoticeable because it's always there. You can't fake behavior. You can't fake activities for so long. So it works. It's observation level 3. How about number 2? E and level 3. Progress with using the skills. It looks like 3, using the skills. So a focus group is the only way we can listen to others, and that's the uniqueness of that method. How about number 3? B and level, you go 2. See, it's building competencies that we probably would look at that as level 2, something they're learning. They measure the level of knowledge before and after the program, level 2. Yeah. Now number 4, go C1. Now C because the questionnaire is a little more flexible, but it also captures open-ended. You've got some data here that's a forecast, so that's numbers. That usually goes beyond what we usually call a survey. When you got numbers, you got raw data. A survey is usually just yes or no or 5-point scale or something like that. Quick data, but when you get raw data provided, we usually call it a questionnaire because the analysis is a little different now. If you
And I'm sorry, what was the level?
1, see,
That was number 4, right?
number 4.
It's just reaction.
Number 4 says obtain reactions.
Yeah.
So how do you do that with C, with the questionnaire, if you're not there?
How do you feel?
No, you're asking him, tell us the extent to which you find this to be relevant to your work, or you see this as something that's important to you, or something that you will intend to use. See, that could be a questionnaire, but now it's directly to the participant, to the people using.
Okay, because the obtain reactions put me off. I thought you had to be visible and see what their reactions were.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
No, it'd be observation, but the reaction is, it could be internal, you never see it on their face.
Yeah,
You want them to tell you.
that's a trick.
Yeah.
That's a trick.
Yeah, it is. All of these are trick. And then number 5, very quickly. A, 1. 6 is 4. Impact. 5 is ROI, ROI number. It's a ratio or percent. So it looks like it's errors in the system. That's level 4 data. And finally, the last one is on 6 is G4. G means it's coming out of the records and it's actually data in the system, impact data. Are we okay there? Okay. And number 7 is D. And it's level, we go 3, use of the acquired skills. Yeah, it says concerning their use of the acquired skills. Right?
Well, they want feedback, okay, but it's
Yeah, so
On the
that's
use.
based on their impact.
not measuring the
Successful
use,
or not.
but do you think that they are, so it seems to be less concrete and not actually, so we get more.
But you're asking, what it says concerning the use of the skills. It looks like level 3 the way it's worded. Now, Yes. Now, so here's where we are. I think it's time for us to wind down. We give you a taste of this, right up through data collection. The next step is sorting out the effects of our program. You got an exercise there you can try in the privacy of your own home, and I'd be happy to provide the answers to you. You got also exercises for converting data to money, and also for reporting results, and also for implementing the system. So in this short period of time, we wanted to show you there's a system available. It happens to be the most used evaluation system in the world now, but it works quite well in your Superuser network. So at the back of this, as we pointed out already, you've got a case study that takes it all the way through there, and it's Diago's case study. In June, he went through our 5-day ROI certification in San Diego. And when you go through that process, you select a project that you'd like to evaluate all the way through to ROI. And we stay with you if you need it. Virtual support till you get done. Diego quickly came out of the gate, determined to do it quickly, and he did. So he's now completed his study, and it's in the back of your material. We're sending Diego a certificate. Diego, you'll get this, but Ginger's going to collect this copy here. Now, this is a cheap version. We have, what he'll be getting is a plaque, and he joins almost 6,000 other people. It says, can you hear me okay? Uh-oh.
You're
Okay, so it says from the ROI Institute that Diego Alvarado has successfully completed all requirements to be a certified ROI professional. And it's signed by both Patty and me. You join a unique group of people. We're so glad to give this to you. Ginger's going to take it now. So we're pleased, and we could tell he's going to move quickly because he was the star at our certification.
He said you were starting certification.
He really stood out among the rest, and they kept asking him questions. So he was really a leader of this group. And so if this is something you want to do, we can organize a particular certification just for super users.
Well, maybe,
That's something we want to talk about later.
Do you have a few words of wisdom to give everyone about your experience in the certification? Sure. Can y'all hear him?
Not real well.
Let's talk loud.
All right, I apologize for the voice is a little shaky, but just coming out of a cold, so I apologize for that. But as I was listening, Jack asking you guys some of the questions from 1 to 10, we had a book about this thing for the whole week. There were like 20 of those, so it was definitely brought a lot of memories. But it was a great experience. I thought it was a great exercise. I told Jack I didn't know what to expect because I thought 5 days talking about ROI. I mean, what are we going to even be talking about by Wednesday? But he made it like really applicable to our day-to-day. And as I kept hearing the methodology, I kept thinking about ways that our super users were already doing a lot of that. And I think it really started that desire to put in a paper, and then not only my case, but to get other companies to provide their cases as well, and to have a collection. Because Jack has books all over the place with ROI cases, and prove how people have adopted the methodology and how they've proven that there's value in the learning programs and there's value in quote-unquote soft skills. So I think our super users are definitely there. We definitely have to put them on the map for our executive sponsors to see that there's value for return on the investment, and super users are worth the investment. So I appreciate it. It was a great exercise. I encourage I'll be glad to get on a call with you or have a conversation so we can talk about, from me after living it, some of my key lessons learned and some of the findings that I had after going through the whole thing. But it was a great exercise. I really encourage you guys to consider it.
Well, thanks for being flexible with us, Diego, and getting on the call here. We really appreciate it. And I would have to say that with a fair amount of certainty, Diego is probably the first super user leader in the world to get his ROI certification
Yes.
as a super user leader. This is a huge step for us. A huge step for us. Yeah, awesome.
So would you, if it may be helpful if you would consider a webinar with the whole team at some point in the future, we could set it up where you go through your case study to take them through it step by step and address any issues they have. We run out of time to do that here. Would you be willing to do that? This puts him on the spot. It's hard to say no when you're.
On the webcam and kind of share some of our findings as well.
Is this something you'd like to do in the future?
Yes.
All right, we'll together we'll organize that.
Okay, great.
Any questions to Diego?
What time is it there, Diego?
Same time, I think.
3:30 right now.
It's 1 hour difference. Yeah. 1 hour.
Okay. Diego, thanks a million for getting on. Really appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We should be there. Hope you all have a great time. And hope to talk to you soon and hear all the great comments about the event.
Okay, we'll get a glass of wine tonight because we're going to be toasting you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you, Diego.
Y'all have fun.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, good job. I think. Yeah. Do we have questions?
I'm sorry, you said there's this other personal case study, what page is that?
67.
67?
Yeah, it's a whole case study. There's about 10 pages.
If that's San Diego's one is on page 67.
Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah. So it's whole study there, right up to all the way to page 60, page 80.
Okay.
Yeah. It's straightforward. He's written the payoff here. He looks at payoffs in terms of, there's one actually process improvement that's converted to money, but there's another, a lot of people are making documents that they use, and they put a value for each document they use. Some are providing training, and they put a cost for what it would cost for the training, but the super user is doing the training. There's another, when they're preventing calls to the help desk, they've got a standard value for the cost of that. Their supervisor is doing that. So they're putting some cost avoidance there in compared to the cost of the whole process. So I think you'll find it interesting. My feedback to Diego was that at least at an intangible, if not tangible, you're ultimately making the people who are in the process more productive, and they're taking less time, and they're actually reducing errors of waste and mistakes, so quality. So output, quality, and time almost always comes through there. And we should probably put, if we don't want to try to trace that onto to how much that actually is, time has been saved total, or errors that we've reduced total, or productivity that's increased total. If we don't have those numbers, we at least want to put it in there as an intangible, not converted to money. Say, this has improved my productivity on a 1 to 5 scale. This has improved the quality of my work on a 1 to 5 scale, or this has improved the timeliness of my work on a 1 to 5 scale. That connects it to those measures that are so critical to any system implementation: output, quality, and time. So I think you'll find the study very easy to read. It's a very good study. We're so glad that he came through with this. And if you want to go down this path yourself, we can explore a possibility of a dedicated project just for the super users. And we could actually do a 3-day version, that is, do some offline and only 3 days face-to-face. We got that version that we can offer here. So you let us know. We'll be reaching out to you with Ginger to see if that's something you want to do. We'll try to make it work. Remember, the ombuds are going through that process. We've had 3 dedicated groups for ombuds already. They're going down the same path. And ultimately, what we want to do and need to do is publish a book of case studies showing the value of superusers. We can do that. We've got that for professions. We should have it for this one. Questions? Thoughts? Concerns? Yes.
How do you, and I know you've coached about credibility being a key thing, how do you get through the proof of causation versus correlation?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, something that's happened in our outfit, and I've been disappointed at this, but anecdotally, we know that as we come up the curve on our system, people are more productive at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional thing goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is we've had fewer either what we call PTO days
Mm-hmm.
executed since really the middle of last year
Mm-hmm.
than we had in years prior to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting thing, but it doesn't, one's not proof, they're not connected by proof.
Right.
Well, how would you handle that?
Okay. See, that's the isolation piece. That's the next block that we stopped at. How do we sort out the effects of this program from other factors? Now, you got your classic experimental versus control group, but you might not be able to do that. In fact, most of the time that doesn't work because you don't have nice groups that you can compare. There's another method we could use is trend line. Let's think about the PTO days. So let's think about what that might look like. See, as you look at the different techniques for a minute. Now, if you look on your job aid for a minute, application guide, go to your application guide. You still have that? Yeah. So let's go to the page that has the isolation issues, page 18. We start with experimental versus control group. Then we have a trend line. And we can show you, let's take yours, the PTO. PTO days went down. Right. So, see, we've got some history here. So suppose PTO days are going up, and when we implemented this program or process that we have, we noticed this happened. So we got this going on, and so this is the actual that we see here. We do something called trend line analysis, if we can, and it looks like this. We take the data before the program and we trend it using Microsoft Excel. This says the trend that's going means it should be here if we did nothing about it, but it's actually here. So this may be, I use the word maybe, our impact. But it has to meet 2 conditions. One is that we go to the people who understand this measure most, the PTO measure, the things that affect us, the things that could have been going on. We say, what's causing that to go up? And they tell us that it's going up slightly because of this, we think. Now we ask, is it still here at this point? See, we're at this point in time now. Is that factor, whatever that influence, still there? If they say, well, yes, so it should be here. Yes, okay. Now, during this process, did we implement anything else? That's the second condition. Did we implement anything else here that would have caused this to improve? If the answer is no, we got it. You see, that's 2 conditions that must be met. Would the trend that has started would have continued if we did nothing? Is there anything else that occurred in there? And you can see it in that little example there. Yeah, as we look at that, this is a fuel savings example from the environmental project. See, we're trying to save fuel consumption per truck by changing some scheduling. You notice the fuel usage is going up, and then it goes down. And it's 62 gallons is our savings. But notice, it says the amount attributed to this program is 62 gallons if the pre-program trend would have continued and no other new influences have entered the post period. Now, in our best practice, about 29% of the time we can use this technique. If we've got something that has a quick impact, we can usually do this. And a lot of our work can have a quick impact. If I can get someone to start using the process better, you're going to see the output quality and time improve quickly. You don't have to wait a month or 2 months, 3 months. You'll get it quickly. So you may have an opportunity for a quick impact when you put something in place, maybe. If so, you might be able to use this. It's worth a try. So about 32% of the time, or about a third, we can use experimental versus control group. This is about 29% of the time. And then there's another one called mathematical modeling. You're probably not going to be able to use that. And that's saying, look, suppose on this PTO, we know we made a change in a policy at about the same time. And we'd say to the person who made the change in a policy governing the PTO, what effect do you think that have? Do you have some model that says when you put this kind of policy in place, this goes down? If so, I'm going to use your model. You tell me that PTO would have gone down this much, but it's actually this much more. I'm going to claim the rest of it. I'm going to use your model, someone else's model, to claim my success. We call that mathematical modeling. It's rare. Our best practice benchmarking is around 5%. Not much, but it's worth just asking that question if there's another influence. Is there a mathematical model? What this comes down to, about a third of the time, we can't get those credible methods like these to work. We got to resort to estimates. But we need a person to sort it out. But we go to the most credible source. That's guiding principle number 3. You remember these guiding principles? Some of you memorized them. I saw you doing this, which is really, really great. Now, guiding principle, these are the standards. Number 3 is make sure we go to the most credible person. That's a person that understands all the dynamics around that measure. And they actually know this program that we're evaluating. They're in there. And then we ask them what % of this improvement is connected to their program. The improvement is a fact. See, we could say now PTO has gone down. That's a fact. How much of we'd first ask, is there anything else that could have caused that? They said, well, yes. There's some things happen. That number was horrible because of some flu season stuff going on. That's gone away now. Plus, we changed the policy. Got 2 things in there. So now you understand those. You say, okay, given those other factors, what % of this improvement goes to this program? That has to be collected in a non-threatening, unbiased way. Then we ask, what's your confidence in that allocation? That's guiding principle number 7. And we put a 0 to 100% scale in front of them. 100% means certainty. There's no error in this. That's exactly what it is. Can't be that. So they come away from 100. If they're 80%, let's say it's 20% error. If it's 70% confident, that's 30% error. You get the picture. So we're going to take that error away. So we use our math from the 4th grade. 4th grade math was tough, you remember? That is, if I want to take 20% error out, I multiply by 80%. Remember that? That was almost like magic. We multiply by 80% and it reduces it by 20. Multiply it by 70%, it reduces by 30%. Wasn't that magic? Now, so we've taken our confidence estimate, multiply it times the allocation. If someone says, I'm going to give 40% to this new process that we're implementing, and I'm 80% confident, we're going to multiply the 40% times 80% That's 32%. So we're not claiming now 40, we're claiming 32. But now we've taken out the error. That error adjustment, we got lots of research that supports that you really need to do that because we have a tendency to overstate a little bit. That gets us under the actual. So in our certification, we spent a whole day on this issue that Bill is bringing up. So to make sure we get that down under our belt quite well. We spend 2 hours just on estimates, which is what we're doing now. I wish we had the time to do that. I would actually take the time to do it, but you'd be dead by the time I got through that.
And we would miss happy events.
Yeah, and all kind of bad things will happen.
Can you really quick cover on this, here where you talk about the percent evaluated?
Yes. So when you got lots of projects and programs, I've mentioned our work with Social Security Administration. They had several hundred IT projects going on. You can imagine that with a $1.9 billion budget. So this, what we say to them, that if you got 200 IT projects going on there, all of them you want to measure probably at level 1 because it's so powerful to make sure people see the value in implementing this. And about 90% maybe of them you'd want to measure at level 2. Maybe 30% at level 3. That 30% of the time I want to check to see if they're using it properly. Maybe even 30 to 40 range. But then impact, I might want to look at 20%. 20% of the projects, I want to make sure they're driving things like productivity, time, quality. Then half of those go up to level 5, ROI. This is a sensible use of this. We reserve the ROI studies to projects or programs that meet these kind of criteria. And I go to the 5th bullet point first, cost. Our most expensive project is the kind of program that we need to be evaluating first. Or it could be, it's important. It could be linked to an operational problem or an opportunity. Or it may be connected to a strategic objective. Or it's the management's interest in this. Highly visible projects, the size of the audience involved in the life cycle of the program. That is, if it's a program that we do quickly and it's gone, there's no need to probably do the ROI because it's already gone. It's those that continue or they last a long time. So we're being very selective when we push it up to ROI. If you do the ROI on everything you do, you'll have paralysis by analysis. And they'll hate you for it, and you'll hate them. Everybody would be crazy. The world could come to an end quickly. We don't want that. We don't want that.
Is it accurate to say that if you're doing an ROI analysis for the 5%, you would have already done those other 4?
Yes.
Is there ever a case where you would not?
Now, you always want to do that. That's guiding principle number 1. When you get to, if you're going to push it to level 5, you're going to have data at 4 levels. If you push it to level 4, you're going to have data at 3 levels. Now, there's a tendency, because executives want to see the impact. They don't care about reaction, learning, and application. But that tells us how we got there. We can educate our executives by saying, we got the impact that we want, but let me show you how they did it. We got there because they see value in what they're doing, this program. They actually learned to do it properly, and they actually followed it properly. That's how we got there. So it's a cause and effect relationship we're looking for. On the other side, if it's negative, if we don't have the other levels of data, we don't know what caused it. That explains why we have a negative project. It's in the lower level numbers. I thought you was going to ask this question, that if you go, say 5 or 10% of our projects push to ROI, don't we cover about half our budget anyway? And the answer is yes, because you're going after the most expensive ones, the ones that involve the most people. It's the big ones, and you're often involved in the big ones. So that's just why you need to probably show the value of the projects you're on. We okay there? I think I'm getting in trouble with Ginger here.
No.
Any questions at all? Concerns, thoughts, prayers? Yes. Again, I brought other books. If you need some books, we just stripped a few of them down, but we've got lots of books out there on this. We need a book on the super users. I can see Ginger and Diego being co-authors. That brings in actual case studies. Well, thank you for your time today.